Chapter 11. Newly wedded. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the most luxurious exclusive room of the secret club, under the dim lighting, Mu Yi-chen leaned against the sofa. He portrayed the elegance and gracefulness of being an elite brought up in a high-class family for so long. As he held a glass of red wine in his hand, he appeared slightly spaced out. All of a sudden, someone slapped his shoulder heavily. He-Jinsei came over with a mischievous smile on his face. "Hey, isn't that our young master Mu? Why are you here out drinking on the second day of your new marriage?" Mu Yi-chen pulled a long face and glared at his good friend coldly but did not speak. He-Jinsei took a seat on the sofa next to Mu Yi-chen at once. "Aren't you pleased with your newly wedded wife? That can't be, can it? Luo Chensi is an absolutely gorgeous woman though." Hearing his childhood friend mention the woman that had been forcibly occupying his thoughts since that morning, Mu Yi-chen's expression grew even more sullen. He pushed He-Jinsei's hand that was still placed on his shoulder away impatiently. "Are you seeking your own death?" From the other side, Bai Shishuan chuckled. "Jinsei, you shouldn't talk about other people's private matters." Had it not been for grandmother Mu obeying the nonsensical order of a fortune teller and insisting that the woman would bring fortune to the husband, thus forcing Yi-chen to get married, how would he have even married the woman? Bo Tinyuan had a look of sudden enlightenment on his face. "I knew it. I knew Yi-chen wouldn't do this." The men exchanged banter and expressed their sympathy for their good friend. How could they not know about Luo Chenxin and what sort of woman she was? Back in those days when she was still in the country, her sole purpose was to make her way to the top of society. Therefore, she seduced quite a number of young masters from powerful families. In fact, her lifestyle took a turn for the worse when she was in France. Unfortunately, Mu Yi-chen was once drugged by someone coincidentally. The woman entered the room just in time and got pregnant, giving birth to a daughter later on. She only went looking for him a month after their daughter was born. Even though the Mu family had been a powerful family for generations, the family was very traditional. Since the daughter was already born, Mu Yi-chen was forced to get engaged to her without any choice. Lu Chenxin had finally gotten what she wanted. She made her way to the top into the most powerful family in City T. Amongst his best friends, they did not expect that the arrogant and haughty Mu Yi-chen would marry a woman like this in the end. Pity. What a pity. You're truly too pathetic. You're newly wedded, yet your wife is a B*tch. "I can't help but sympathize with you," exclaimed He-Jinsei while shaking his head. Bai Shishuan also said, "Anyhow, you're already married. You should try to make things work." Mu Yi-chen glared at Bai Shishuan ferociously. "Do you think that I'm not as picky as you, that I'm okay as long as it is a woman?" Nevertheless, that wicked woman's face emerged in his mind once again. Her temperament seemed different from a few years ago. In fact, she was even a little adorable and appeared to be unexpectedly friendly when she was with the little dumpling. Was he incapable of seeing through the B*tch's acting, just like how Bai Shishuan and the rest usually mocked him? Mu Yi-chen shook his head vigorously all of a sudden. What was he thinking about? It was all Bai Shishuan's fault for badly influencing him. Bai Shishuan clicked his tongue in disgust. "Since when am I not a picky person?" Bo Tinyuan pacified them. All right. Yi-chen, you can still leave that woman in the house even if you're married. She can't meddle with your life. Then, divorce her after a few years. There's nothing she'll be able to do about it." "Precisely. She's nothing but a woman. Why would you let her ruin your good mood? Come. We won't let you go home without getting completely intoxicated today." He-Jinsei brought over a few bottles of excellent red wine from the bar. Mu Yi-chen had a high alcohol tolerance for which he was famous among his childhood friends. They had never seen him being intoxicated before. However, he was in a foul mood today. Perhaps, they could drown his sorrow with alcohol. Unfortunately, when the wine glass was raised to Mui Chen's face, it was pushed away. "I've stopped drinking red wine. Take it away. Don't let me see it again." He felt especially troubled when he saw the red wine. Jinsi was stunned for a moment. "What's wrong with you? I thought you liked the red wine produced in this vineyard the most." Mui Chen frowned and stood up abruptly. Then, he walked out. "Hey, Chen, what are you doing?" Jinsi asked closely from behind. "It's late. I'm going home." Mui Chen picked up the jacket hanging by the door before he left without even looking back. Chapter 12. Who do you think you are? You are listening at NovelFull.audio. He left his group of childhood friends behind staring speechless at each other. They had no idea what was wrong with him. He had never left the club so early in the past. Now that he married that scheming woman, why would he be rushing to go home just so he could feel horrible? The silver limited edition Cadillac pulled up in front of the villa. Mui Chen closed the door loudly and cursed under his breath. What was the point of coming home so early? Luo Chensi might think that he missed her if she saw him coming home. Mui Chen removed his coat and tossed it onto the sofa after entering the villa. He walked up to his bedroom on the second floor as usual. He had already made up his mind to send the scheming woman away from the master bedroom. He would never give her another chance to get close to him so that she could get a clear understanding of his identity. However, he was stunned for a moment when he opened the door to the room. There was no one. The woman was actually not around. Mui Chen's brows furrowed tightly. Very well. So, she doesn't come home on the second night of her new marriage. Who do you think you are? If she still had the courage to come back, he would deal with her properly. He changed his direction and walked to Tang Tang's room. Then, he opened the door gently and walked in. On the pink princess bed, the soft little dumpling was already fast asleep. Her fair, soft, chubby cheeks were flushing pink while her little mouth was pouting ever so slightly. She looked just like a doll. Mui Chen was finally at ease after seeing her sleeping rather soundly. In the morning, Tang Tang had seen that woman again and was so startled that she cried again. He was rather worried that his little girl would start having nightmares just like before. Fortunately, the little dumpling was not as emotionally distressed this time. Just as he felt relieved, he noticed Tang Tang begin stirring under the blanket. At the same time, her lips were muttering as if she was constantly saying something. Mui Chen felt anxious once again, so he moved closer to her in a haste. Miss, beautiful, smell great, Tang Tang wants a hug. Mui Chen was stunned for a moment. He thought that Tang Tang was having nightmares again, but it did not look as though she was having a nightmare. Mississippi. Who is the miss she's dreaming of? Mui Chen suddenly remembered that morning when Tang Tang had gotten into their bed and cuddled Luo Chensi's arm coquettishly. She can't be referring to the malicious woman. I thought Tang Tang hates her. How could Tang Tang possibly ask for a hug from her in her dream? Mui Chen could not figure that out regardless. Tang Tang had already turned over and grabbed a teddy bear that was her size by her side. She wrapped her arms around it and muttered sweetly to herself, Miss, moi. Then, she kissed the teddy bear's face with a loud smack before she lay asleep across the teddy bear's body. The way she slept with her buttocks facing the ceiling looked rather similar to how the woman sprawled across the floor when she had tripped and fallen last night. Mui Chen was rendered astonished. She could not even distinguish a human and a teddy bear. Was this silly little girl really his daughter? He was such an intelligent man, so it seemed Tang Tang could only have inherited her mother's. No, that's impossible. His little princess was so adorable. She could not possibly have gotten that from that malicious woman. At the thought of this, he raised his head subconsciously and looked up at the clock on the wall. It was already 11 o'clock. Despite being so late, the woman still had not returned home. She was simply rebellious. Meanwhile, the sound of the door opening was suddenly heard from downstairs. Luo Chenxi went to her international hospital once more afterward to transfer Lu Wenjun to a new ward. When she was done making arrangements for everything, she discovered that it was already close to midnight. Immediately, she realized that she was in trouble. It was already very late, so she returned home in a rush. She unlocked the door with her thumbprint and entered the villa to notice that the house was very quiet. It seemed like everybody was asleep. Luo Chenxi exhaled a breath of relief secretly. It seemed like Mu Yichen loathed her sister very much. As a result, he completely disregarded her presence. Perhaps, he had not even come home yet. Luo Chenxi felt relieved. Great. Mu Yichen isn't home. It feels like even the air smells more refreshing, she said out loud. A man like Mu Yichen was extremely dangerous. She found it difficult not to accidentally divulge her secrets in his presence. Therefore, it was safer for her to stay further away from him. Something good was finally happening after such a long, exhausting day. Taking a deep breath, she stretched herself, then dragged her fatigued body to the guest room to rest. However, it was at this very instant that she heard a deep, hoarse male voice coming from above her. Chapter 13. No respect for the newly wedded husband. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Luo Chenxi, so it seems like you're having that much fun outside to the extent that you're home so late on the second day of your new marriage, huh? Luo Chenxi's expression stiffened at once. She raised her head in a daze and peered up at the handsome man standing in the corridor of the second floor with his arms crossed and glaring down at her. His delicate, perfect face appeared mysterious yet estranged under the dim lighting. She was distracted by looking at him once again. He was a man that looked more gorgeous than a woman. How was any woman going to survive out there? Why aren't you speaking anymore? I thought you were very talkative earlier. You even said something about how the air smells more refreshing when I'm not around, didn't you? His voice was heavily tainted with anger. BDNVL.M Luo Chenxi was startled when she realized that Mu Yichen had already walked down and had arrived in front of her now. The distance between them was so close. With his overbearing aura practically pushed right into her face, she broke out in a cold sweat. When had this man appeared? Did he even make a sound when he walked? He even managed to catch her complaining earlier. Now, that was awkward. Luo Chenxi forced a laugh. Cough, cough. Young Master Mu, good evening. It's late. Why aren't you asleep yet? She wondered if there was still time for her to feign amnesia now. Mu Yichen's voice sounded dull. I haven't slept. After all, my newly wedded wife is still enjoying herself outside. She can't bear to come home, yet so how can I sleep early? So. Luo Chenxi was stunned. He made her seem like a scumbag according to his description. What the *CK? Could Mu Yichen have forgotten his warning to her that morning to stay further away from him? Upon noticing her lack of response, his gaze grew even more somber. He questioned her closely, tell me, where did you go so late in the night? For some unknown reason, Mu Yichen was furious at the thought of how he had rushed back from the secret club intentionally while she returned home after midnight. He insisted on interrogating her. Even if there were no feelings between both of them, it should be his right to leave Luo Chenxi at home. It should be him that was out having a good time with his friends. How did their roles get reversed now? Did this woman not constantly cry and ask him to marry her, even stirring a scheme to drug him? It had been only less than a day since their wedding and she had the courage to stay out until midnight. It was obvious that she had no respect for her newly wedded husband. Moreover, she accused him of polluting the air. Luo Chenxi could not refrain from shrugging innocently when she sensed Mu Yichen's rage. It was a question that was rather difficult for her to answer. If she were to answer it honestly, her identity would be exposed. She pondered for a moment before she answered, I went back to the Luo family. Then, I heard that a relative of mine is sick, so I went to visit her at the hospital on my way home. My phone ran out of battery. That's why I lost track of time. So, it turns out that it's already this late, huh? Oh, do you think that I'll fall for your lies? Mu Yichen sneered. It was apparent that he did not trust her at all. Luo Chenxi took out her phone from her handbag and passed it to him with both hands for him to check. Here. This is my phone. Take a look for yourself. It's out of battery. Mu Yichen took her phone without showing the slightest courtesy and fiddled with it for a while. Indeed, it was out of battery and could not be turned on anymore. His deeply furrowed brows slightly relaxed. Luo Chenxi gave herself an upvote upon noticing that his expression looked better now. It should not be a problem for a person to lie about anything on the general approach. However, the details of the lie had to be realistic enough. It seemed like her lie would pass the test smoothly this time. Look, I'm not lying to you. If there's nothing else, I'm going to take a shower. Luo Chenxi was afraid that Mu Yichen would continue to question her, so she wanted to flee in a hurry. Noticing that she was about to leave, Mu Yichen grabbed her wrist and pulled her back to him. Luo Chenxi staggered and her body swayed a few times before she fell onto the sofa next to her with a plop. Mu Yichen bent over and propped up himself with his arms against the sofa back, trapping her in the space between his arms. Was that a sofa, Don? Chapter 14. I told you, this is the family rule. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Luo Chenxin, what are you looking at? Luo Chenxi was abruptly jolted back to reality. She hastily coughed forcibly. Cough, cough. I was looking at your chin. You have such a nice chin. Aren't you tired of keeping it tense all the time? Even though he knew that the wicked woman was only making blind conjectures, Mu Yichen's expression became much more relaxed after hearing her compliment his good looks. Stop telling me your honeyed words. Listen to me closely. You're not allowed to come home so late from tomorrow onward. You must be home before dinner. That's the Mu family rule. Can you remember that clearly? Luo Chenxi was stunned for a moment. Be home before dinner. How's that possible? What if I have some matters to attend to such that I need to have my dinner elsewhere? Then, you must call me and report to me in advance. Luo Chenxi widened her eyes in surprise. She refuted subconsciously, I thought you were asking me to stay further away from you and not disturb you. He was ordering her to call him and report to him. Was that even appropriate? Mu Yichen's face darkened. Shut up. I told you, this is the family rule. He had already given this woman permission to call him. Should she not have agreed to him in delight? She even had the courage to argue with him. No, this woman was always up to something. She must be feigning it. Perhaps, she would use the excuse of reporting to him tomorrow to call him 3 times a day at every meal. At the thought of this, Mu Yichen immediately added, you can call me if you really have something going on at night. You're not allowed to disturb me on normal days. Even if you were to call, I won't answer it. Do you understand me? Luo Chenxi nodded repeatedly. Understood, understood. You don't want to see me, so you won't want to take my call either, of course. Don't worry, I won't call you for sure. Even if I have to update you, I'll report by sending you a text. In reality, there was no need for Mu Yichen to warn her. She would never do it to allow herself to feel rejected anyway. In fact, she wished that she could stay as far as she could from Mu Yichen. Luo Chenxi thought that she was being rather sincere, so he should be satisfied with her answer. As a result, she raised her head to look up. What happened? She felt that Mu Yichen's face had darkened even further. Very well. Mu Yichen squeezed out those words from his clenched teeth. Remember your promise. I'll bear that in mind for sure. Luo Chenxi could see Mui Chen's unpleasant expression and she was afraid that she might provoke him even more. As a result, she made sure that she was even more polite and obedient. Luo Chenxi blinked her huge eyes at him with her innocent expression. His pent-up anger was choked within his chest and he felt exceptionally frustrated for not being able to express himself. Mui Chen, you're done, aren't you? I'm going to rest in the room if you are. Luo Chenxi nudged him and was about to get up. However, the man before her refused to budge at all despite being nudged by her for a few times. His tall, muscular, and fit body remained firmly unmoving above her body while he studied her with a deep glance. Why are you looking at me like that? Luo Chenxi had goosebumps just from his stare. Mui Chen parted his delicate lips and said something that struck terror into her heart, Luo Chenxin, you seem different from before. Luo Chenxi felt like her heart rose to her throat instantaneously. What did he mean? Could he have found out something already? That could not be, could it? The document Luo Anghua passed her obviously stated that the relationship between Mui Chen and Luo Chenxi was cold. They barely met each other after the engagement and Mui Chen treated her like a stranger. Luo Chenxi let out a forced chuckle. How am I different? It's because we barely spend time learning about each other. Now that we are living together, we'll discover that the other person is slightly different from our imagination, of course. That's normal, she came up with a forced explanation. When she was done, she widened her huge cat-like eyes and stared at Mui Chen eagerly. She truly hoped that he would let go of her soon. Chapter 15. Am I getting a baby brother and baby sister now? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mui Chen scoffed. I truly wish that was the case too. I don't care that you came home late tonight and whether you really went back to the Luo family. I'm only going to warn you once. Since you've already become the young mistress of the Mu family, you are representing the Mu family's reputation when you go out. For those chaotic relationships of yours before the marriage, break them off and clean them up. If I were to catch you fooling around with some other men again, I guarantee that you'll regret it for the rest of your life. In the past, He Jinxi and the rest used to mock him that Luo Chenxin was cheating on him. However, he had never taken it to heart. She was a woman that he had no love for, so her doings did not concern him at all. However, he felt extremely uneasy when he heard those words of hers once again tonight. His uneasiness was raised to its peak the very moment he realized that she came home late. Something clicked in Luo Chenxi's mind. When she heard his warning, she came to realize that Mui Chen did not fall for her lie about her phone being out of battery. In fact, in his heart, he was already set on the idea that she was fooling around outside. There was a look of irritation in the depth of Luo Chenxi's eyes. Mui Chen, you have a filthy mind. I've already explained myself earlier. You can choose to believe me or not, whichever suits you best. Please move away from me now. Even if she did spend the night with Mui Chen, he had no right to defile her like this. This man was simply an egomaniac. He was unbelievable. What a waste that he had such a good-looking face. Luo Chenxi pushed Mui Chen's chest in an attempt to get up. Mui Chen's gaze was growing darker and more dangerous with time. He clutched her chin and tilted her face forward. Are you trying to seduce me again? WH. What? Luo Chenxi widened her moist eyes that were filled with confusion. How was she seducing him? She was obviously trying to get away from him and leave, was she not? However, Mui Chen refused to listen to her explanation. He looked at her soft lips that were slightly parted due to shock. He could no longer suppress the burning flames in his heart anymore. Finally, he did something that he had been constantly trying to do since he woke up that morning. As you wish. Luo Chenxi had never thought that she would be suddenly forced into a kiss while both of them were still talking to each other. All of a sudden, the patter of footsteps was heard coming from the second floor. Soon afterward, Tang Tang's soft voice was heard coming from behind them. Daddy! What are you doing? Mu Yichen's body stiffened for a moment and he let go of Luo Chenxi at once. He was actually caught in bed by his daughter. No, they were on the sofa. Luo Chenxi was even more embarrassed. She could not refrain herself from covering her face with her hands as she felt that her blushing face was burning in embarrassment. Oh my God! What is wrong with her? How did this happen again? Could Luo Ongua have drugged her again today? The worst part of this was that Tang Tang had witnessed the scene once again. Was this considered mutilating the youth of the country? However, Tang Tang was oblivious to the awkwardness between her parents. She blinked her huge eyes and pouted her lips as she looked at Mu Yichen before she glanced at Luo Chenxi. At last, she nodded with her little head strenuously and announced her conclusion. I knew it. Daddy and Miss are making baby brothers and baby sisters. You, Tang Tang, what did you say? Who taught you that? Luo Chenxi almost choked to death on her saliva when she heard those words coming from the adorable little dumpling's mouth. Tang Tang grinned and said, Aunt told me about it. She said that when a boy kisses a girl and a girl kisses the boy, then comes a little baby. Are Daddy and Miss making a small baby as well? Does that mean that Tang Tang will get a baby brother and baby sister now? That the little dumpling sucked on a finger and tilted her head. She looked at the two adults in puzzlement. That question. How was she going to answer it? Luo Chenxi wished that she could be like an ostrich that could dig a hole and bury herself. Mu Yichen gnashed his teeth in rage. Mu Weiwei. What have you learned from going to school all day? How dare you teach Tang Tang about that? It seems like you need to be punished. Chapter 16. They looked just like a normal pair of mother and daughter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tang Tang was not raised by her mother. As a result, the closest female relative to her was her aunt, Mu Weiwei. Usually, Tang Tang would follow Mu Weiwei everywhere when she was unoccupied at home. Mu Weiwei would go to the end of the world for the only little princess in the Mu family as well. Formerly, Mu Yichen rejoiced tremendously because although his sister was slightly rebellious, she was especially patient when spending time with Tang Tang. Her presence helped to make up for Tang Tang's lack of a maternal presence. However, who would have thought that Mu Weiwei had actually taught Tang Tang this? I knew that I can't trust that little sister of mine. No wonder grandmother said that Tang Tang would still need a mother. Just as Mu Yichen was still troubled by the situation, Tang Tang had already taken it upon herself to crawl up to the sofa. Then, she crawled onto Luo Chenxi's body and wrapped her arms around her neck. Mississippi. Good girl, Tang Tang. It's late. Why aren't you sleeping yet? The soft, fuzzy little dumpling threw herself into Luo Chenxi's arms, overwhelming her. She hastily supported her little buttocks and cradled Tang Tang into her arms in fear that the little girl would fall. Tang Tang was waiting for you to come home. Miss, why did you sneak away secretly in the morning? Tang Tang has been looking for you everywhere for a long time. Luo Chenxi could not help being stunned for a moment upon hearing Tang Tang's remarks. What was happening? Tang Tang had obviously left her in an inconsolable crying state this morning. How did it end up with her being the person that snuck away secretly now? Luo Chenxi became even more confused as she looked at the little dumpling's expression as if she had to complain about being wronged. Hastily, she turned her head to the man by her side, seeking for his help. Mu Yichen was dumbstruck with bewilderment as he watched the woman and the child hugging each other in an extraordinarily intimate manner. He could still clearly remember how Tan Yueru had taken Tang Tang away while she was still weeping sadly this morning. It was not that long ago when he was still worried that this morning's event might emotionally traumatize Tang Tang to the point that she might need psychiatric treatment again. On the contrary, the situation now. Tang Tang had actually taken it upon herself to crawl into the woman's arms and even looked like she trusted and depended on that woman. They looked just like a normal pair of mother and daughter. How could this be possible? Every time the mother and daughter met each other in the past, it would end with Tang Tang being so frightened that she would have an emotional breakdown. Luo Chenxi felt helpless when she noticed that Mu Yichen did not respond to her. She could only give a forced explanation, "I have to go to work in the morning." "Work? Why do you have to work?" Tang Tang's soft, chubby face puffed up with a puzzled look. "I have to work so that I can make some money. With the money, I can buy you some yummy treats, Tang Tang." Luo Chenxi chirped while she pinched her adorable little face. Tang Tang was truly the cutest little girl that she had ever seen. Her adorable smile made a person feel like giving her the best things in the world. Still, Tang Tang was even more puzzled upon hearing her answer. "Why do you have to work to make money? Why don't you just ask for money from Daddy?" Since she was young, she would ask her daddy to give her whatever she wanted and her daddy would just buy it for her. Cough, cough, cough. Luo Chenxi could not refrain himself from choking. Ask Mu Yichen for money. Judging by how much he loathed her, she bet that he would send her away with a slap if she were to do that. Luo Chenxi shuddered from fear just at the thought of how he looked when he lost his temper. She hugged Tang Tang tighter and explained, "That's because you are Daddy's daughter and I'm not. That is why I can't take your daddy's money." The little dumpling was obviously quite confused by the logic of this situation. She wrinkled her nose and pondered for a moment before she looked at Luo Chenxi in sympathy. Tang Tang understands now. It must be because Daddy is too stingy. "No, no, no, this is not your daddy's fault." Luo Chenxi was at a loss for words. Aunt said that a man who doesn't let his woman use his money is stingy. Daddy is stingy. Tang Tang concluded in a disdainful tone. Chapter 17. The little princess abandoned him just like that. You are listening at novelfull.audio. She did not even have the courage to turn her head and look at Mu Yichen's expression now. Mu Yichen already loathed her enough. It seemed like one more offense was about to be added to her list of charges now. Badly influencing his little princess. She wondered if she could still live to see the sunshine tomorrow morning. "I'm stingy." Meanwhile, Mu Yichen's voice was suddenly heard by her side. Luo Chenxi was so startled she almost leaped up from the sofa. Since when did this man lean toward her once again? She wondered if he would pardon her death sentence for the sake of Tang Tang. "I didn't say that." Don't misunderstand," Luo Chenxi explained hastily. Mu Yichen shot an icy cold glance at her before he stretched out his arms to hold the little dumpling in her cradled arms. "Tang Tang, it's midnight. You should go to sleep. Come back to your room with Daddy." However, Tang Tang shot him a look before she turned around her head and threw herself into Luo Chenxi's arms once again. She buried her head into the nook of her neck and flashed her little buttocks at her father. "No. Tang Tang doesn't want Daddy. Tang Tang wants to sleep with Mississippi." Mu Yichen had already poised himself with his arms opened and was waiting for his little princess to dive into his arms at first. To his shock, she completely disregarded him. He froze on the spot. He could not believe that his little princess that was always calling him, "my favorite daddy," and, "I love Daddy the most," had actually abandoned him in such a manner. Noticing Mu Yichen's expression dim once again, Luo Chenxi hastily gave Tang Tang a hug and persuaded her, "Tang Tang, it's late. You should follow your father and go to sleep." The little dumpling felt extremely aggrieved at once when Luo Chenxi tried to push her away. Her huge eyes were filled with tears instantly that threatened to stream down her face at any time. "Miss, don't you like Tang Tang anymore?" Luo Chenxi shook her head in a hurry. "No, no. How can I not like Tang Tang? I like Tang Tang the most." "You're a liar," the little dumpling complained in a shaky voice, "you don't want to sleep with Tang Tang." But, Tang Tang, those are two different things." You should go back to sleep now and I'll come and play with you when you're awake. Is that all right? Luo Chenxi racked her brain to persuade the little dumpling. It was not that she refused to sleep with Tang Tang, but the man beside her was constantly staring at her with a threatening gaze. She recalled the events that morning when the entire Mu family members had stopped her from getting closer to Tang Tang. She figured that Mu Yichen would never give her permission to take Tang Tang back to her room, would he? Just as expected, Mu Yichen took a step forward and wrapped his arms around Tang Tang's waist in an attempt to take the little dumpling away by force. Listen to me and be a good girl, Tang Tang. Come, I'll read you a story. However, Tang Tang insisted on clutching Luo Chenxi's neck tightly. She held on even tighter with great effort and refused to let go. Mu Yichen was about to pry her grip loose when she immediately broke out in a loud cry, "Wah, wah. Go away, Daddy, I want Miss." Mu Yichen's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. His little princess, the little princess that he raised from a crying infant, had actually abandoned him. Just because she wanted to sleep with a woman that used to bully her in the past. Luo Chenxi hugged the little dumpling tighter and stole a glance at Mu Yichen. She spoke cautiously, "Young Master Mu, why don't you allow Tang Tang to sleep with me?" She did not wish to provoke this dangerous man, but she found that she had no other choice after listening to Tang Tang sobbing. It made her heart bleed when she heard the cries of such an adorable little angel. Mu Yichen's cold and stern gaze swept toward her. In response, Luo Chenxi raised her right hand and speedily made a vow. "I swear that Tang Tang won't even lose a single strand of hair if she follows me." Mu Yichen looked at her for a while before he answered with a cold grunt. "Why haven't you gone upstairs yet?" Luo Chenxi blinked her eyes. "Ha! Tang Tang is supposed to be in bed by 9 o'clock. It's almost 12 now." Chapter 18. Refuse to eat this poisonous fish. You are listening at novelfull.audio. So, are you saying that you'll allow me to sleep with Tang Tang? Luo Chenxi reacted to the situation. She sat upright in surprise instantly and her beautiful feline eyes even flickered with joyous radiance. She was truly delighted. She was so thrilled that she almost leaped up when she thought about how she could snuggle with the soft little Tang Tang in her arms. The little dumpling immediately turned her head around as well. The tears at the corners of her eyes had yet to dry, but her little face already cracked into a smile. Looking at how the two similarly exquisite faces of the woman and the girl cracked into emotional smiles, Mu Yichen almost died from his pent-up grievance. There was no need to mention how uneasy he felt. What was going on? Why did it seem like he was the tyrant trying to separate a pair of mother and daughter by force? He was obviously trying to protect his little princess, was he not? Sigh, this little ungrateful, spoilt child. Meanwhile, the little dumpling suddenly turned around and threw herself into Mu Yichen's arms. She wrapped her arms around his neck and gave him a loud smooch on his cheek. "You're awesome, Daddy. Tang Tang loves Daddy the most." The little princess finally loved her daddy the most once again. Upon listening to her words, the surging anxiety in Mu Yichen's chest seemed to lessen slightly. His expression turned kinder as well. After Tang Tang gave her father a goodnight kiss, the father and daughter looked toward Luo Chenxi sitting on the sofa in unison. Luo Chenxi blinked her eyes and asked in a slightly confused manner, "Why are both of you looking at me?" Mu Yichen suddenly regained her focus and his expression darkened once again. For that split second when Tang Tang retreated from his arms earlier, he suddenly had a subconscious thought that Luo Chenxi should be acting like Tang Tang and throw herself into his arms before giving a kiss on his other cheek and saying, "I love you," to him. Only then would they look like a lovely family of three. He must have drunk too much that night to the extent that he was tempted into making such associations in his mind. "Nothing, let's go. Miss, why haven't you given Daddy a kiss?" Mu Yichen never expected that Tang Tang would actually ask the question that he kept in his heart earlier. As soon as those words were spoken, both adults were stunned for a moment. Tang Tang twisted her little body in Mu Yichen's arms strenuously to push him away with her buttocks. She threw herself into Luo Chenxi's arms once again with her arms wide open. Instinctively, Luo Chenxi caught the chubby little dumpling safely at once. Tang Tang leaned her head on her shoulder and said in a childish voice, "Miss, give Daddy a kiss. We must thank Daddy." As she spoke, the little dumpling widened her eyes and looked at Luo Chenxi in anticipation. Luo Chenxi was at a loss about what to do in that instant. Should she kiss Mu Yichen? With his attractive face, it should be her benefiting from giving him a kiss. However, her issue was that would this man throw her into the Pacific Ocean and feed her to the sharks later due to the extent of his loathing for her. With her life at stake, she might as well leave this matter be. After all, there were plenty more fish in the sea. With so many gorgeous-looking men in the world, there was no need for her to insist on eating this poisonous fish. Luo Chenxi picked the little dumpling up in one go and stood up. "Tang Tang, it's really late. You should sleep now. I'm sleepy too and I can't even open my eyes. Let's go to bed." Even though Tang Tang was still slightly recalcitrant, she laid on Luo Chenxi's chest obediently upon seeing how tired the pretty lady was and allowed her to carry her upstairs. Mu Yichen followed closely behind them. "Miss, this is my room." Luo Chenxi was about to turn in the direction where Tang Tang was pointing when she was stopped by the man behind her. "Tang Tang's bed is too small. You won't fit. You can take the master bedroom tonight." His deep voice was heard. For Tang Tang's sake, he was making a huge sacrifice. "Oh, okay." Luo Chenxi nodded and walked into the master bedroom with the little dumpling in her arms. She turned around and wished him good night. "I'm heading to bed with Tang Tang first. Young Master Mu, tomorrow we shall." She was halfway through her sentence when her eyes suddenly widened in surprise. Mu Yichen had followed her into the room and locked the door behind him. Chapter 19. Mutilated the youth of the country once again. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Mu Yichen's unexpected action sent chills down Luo Chenxi's spine. She felt like she was in danger. The scene before her eyes felt too familiar to her. This happened last night. It was the same room and the same man. Mu Yichen walked toward her in long strides. As he advanced, he was also removing the buttons on his shirt. Luo Chenxi held the little dumpling in her arms tightly and looked at Mu Yichen with a vigilant expression. What are you trying to do?" Mu Yichen was stunned by her question for a moment. Soon afterward, he squinted his eyes ever so slightly and shifted his gaze to her tense little face. He actually wanted to do something. However, his train of thought was disrupted when he saw the little dumpling in Luo Chenxi's cradled arms, looking at him with the same expression as her mommy. His thin lips curled into a vicious smile. "What do you think I'm trying to do?" His long, slim and strong fingers moved away from the buttons on his shirt to the belt buckle on his hip. Then, he assumed a posture of loosening the belt buckle. Luo Chenxi drew in a cold breath. She immediately raised her hand and covered Tang Tang's eyes. Hey, your daughter is still here. What are you trying to do? You're a beast." "Beast?" Mu Yichen sneered coldly. "Luo Chenxi, what are you thinking in that mind of yours? Don't tell me that you're thinking that I'd be interested in a woman like you, huh?" Judging by Mu Yichen's tone, it seemed like he was not planning to do something to her. Luo Chenxi clenched her teeth in rage. However, she felt relieved deep inside at the same time. "Why did you follow me into the room then?" "Please allow me to remind you that this is my room," he said indifferently. Luo Chenxi was exasperated. Then, you shall sleep here. I can sleep in the guest room with Tang Tang. Do you think that I'd allow you to sleep in a room with Tang Tang on your own? Do you think that I'll forget what you did to her in the past just because you're treating her nicely today?" Tang Tang insists on you sleeping with her and I can't bear to bring myself to reject her. However, I must monitor you personally." Mu Yichen stared at her and explained impatiently. Upon listening to his explanation, Luo Chenxi was immediately rendered speechless. The Mu family members were all guarding against Luo Chenxin and stopping her from getting close to Tang Tang. Right now, Mu Yichen deserved to have such concerns as well. Then, please behave yourself tonight. Don't try to look for an opportunity to make advances toward me, she warned him, still slightly concerned. Mu Yichen's gaze swept across her body from up to down. After that, he spoke disdainfully, you think too highly of yourself. Look at you. You're like a skinny skeletal ghost. Do you think that I'd even take a second glance at you last night if not for your shameless act of drugging me? Luo Chenxi was ashamed and furious. She could not refrain herself from gnashing her teeth in rage. Mu Yichen, are you blind? Have you ever seen a skeletal ghost with such voluptuous breasts and pert buttocks like me? Also, I didn't drug you last night. It wasn't my. Bang. That was the sound of Mu Yichen slamming the bathroom door loudly on her. F***ck. What kind of person are you? Luo Chenxi cursed aloud in rage. She turned around and saw that the little dumpling in her arms had her huge eyes open and was watching her curiously. She was so embarrassed. Oops. I forgot that the little dumpling is still here. She had mutilated the youth of the country once again. Cough, cough. I didn't say anything just now and you didn't hear anything either. Alright, time to sleep. Luo Chenxi let out a fake cough, then she diverted the topic of discussion by force. Fortunately, the little dumpling's eyes glowed at once when she heard the word sleep. She immediately took it upon herself to crawl under the blanket. At the same time, she lifted the blanket and patted the space next to her. Miss, it's time to sleep. As Luo Chenxi looked at the familiar huge bed, the R-rated scenes from the previous night emerged beyond her control in her mind. Chapter 20. Damn it. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Mississippi. The little dumpling tilted her head sideways and urged Luo Chenxi. Luo Chenxi shook her head frantically to dismiss the distracting thoughts and slid into the bed. She had only just laid down when the little dumpling rolled into her arms to cuddle her chest. Good night, Mississippi. Good night, Tang Tang. The little dumpling's delicate face was blushing light pink. She closed her eyes and fell asleep in a short while. At first, Luo Chenxi was still feeling rather worried. She heard that the act of coaxing a child to sleep was a highly difficult task. Furthermore, she was inexperienced when it came to that. Mu Yichen would be furious if he were to learn that she accidentally made Tang Tang cry during the process. Fortunately, Tang Tang behaved herself very well and actually fell asleep by herself. As she held the small dumpling in her arms, the little girl felt soft, warm and fuzzy. Listening to Tang Tang's slow breathing, Luo Chenxi's tensed mind gradually relaxed after a long day. Without realizing it, she gradually drifted off to sleep as well. By the time Mu Yichen got out from the shower, he witnessed the scene of the mother and daughter sleeping soundly together. The scene was harmonious beyond his expectations. Tang Tang's appearance looked 70% similar to her mother's. It was just that Luo Chenxin's eyes were always flickering with greed and conspiracy. The sight of her disgusted him every single time. On the other hand, Tang Tang was pure and adorable such that one could not help loving her from the bottom of the heart. She was completely different from Chenxin. However, right now, Mu Yichen's gaze shifted to Luo Chenxi. He had a look of deep ponderation on his face. Sleeping soundly, the wicked woman looked so naive and harmless. Her fair skin was blushing in her sleep. She had a set of slightly pouty lips and long, curly lashes akin to little fans that looked exactly the same as Tang Tang's. Anyone could see and sense that they were mother and daughter with a close relationship. Mu Yichen's gaze grew deeper and deeper. His body was also moving closer and closer toward Luo Chenxi's. Luo Chenxi suddenly turned over in her sleep and gave out a soft grunt. Mu Yichen only realized that he had gotten so close to Luo Chenxi without even noticing it when he was almost kissing her. Damn it! What did this woman drug me with this time? He leaped up at once and walked into the bathroom with long strides as if he was running away from a killer. The next morning, no one was by her side by the time Luo Chenxi woke up. She was all alone, lying in the center of the huge bed with her arms and legs spread as if she was making a snow angel. Luo Chenxi sat upright in an instant. She looked to the left and to the right only to see that both her sides had been slept in before. She bit her nails awkwardly. I remembered placing Tang Tang in the center of the bed last night clearly. My sleeping posture was so bad that I squished her in my sleep. However, if that is the case, Mu Yichen would have fallen over from the bed because of me, right? She slept in someone else's room and almost pushed someone over the bed. It was an exceedingly sinful crime. Luo Chenxi got up and washed with a shameful and uneasy feeling in her heart. She saw that her phone was still placed on the bedside table, so she reached it and plugged the charging cable into the phone. As soon as her phone was turned on, a few ringtones pinged continuously and startled her. Luo Chenxi hastily reached for the phone and took a look only to discover that there were 7 to 8 missed calls from yesterday. All the calls were made from the same unknown number. At last, this particular number sent her a text, perhaps after noticing that her phone had been turned off all the time. Miss Xing Chen, congratulations for winning the preliminary round of the Chinese design competition. You have been accepted into the next round. Please be present at the headquarters of SL Trend International Holdings at 9:00 a.m. tomorrow. We shall be reviewing the participants' eligibility at the occasion. Failure to turn up will lead to disqualification. Luo Chenxi was stunned for a moment upon reading the text message. After that, a pleasant surprise was revealed in her expression.